the CEO and co-founder of Deal Ignite. With me today, I've got Andy Wynn. Andy and I, we're going to talk about, well, it's quite a long title. It's An App is Not Going to Save the World, How the Climate Change Threat Has Led to a New Wave of Advanced Materials Innovation. I'm really excited about this because I was just saying before we came on, it's not a subject that I'm particularly strong on, and therefore it's great to learn stuff. Before we dig in, Andy, where can people find you?
Well, thanks for having me on your,
You're welcome.
Your podcast, Tim. You do a great job of these podcasts, and I appreciate the invitation to come and contribute. So people can find me on LinkedIn. I'm Mr. LinkedIn these days, as a lot of people are. You can find me on Andy Wynn. You can find my business website, which is ttipglobal.com. And you can find my contact details there.
Okay, right, okay. So I've just had an error message about LinkedIn, but I'll carry on because we're going to be recording this anyway, and it's going out on Twitter and YouTube. So let's just carry on. In terms of you've got a really extensive background, so give the audience an idea about your journey, about how you got here, because one of the things is that people watch this, we get this old and young, and I think it's really interesting for younger people, well, older people as well, to understand your journey and the things that you did to get to be the expert that you are today.
I get that. Yeah, it has been a long journey. I've been 30 years plus in industry around the world. I started, I guess, degree and PhD chemistry at Warwick University. I went into industry. I went to work for a group called Morgan Advanced Materials, and I stayed there for nigh on 30 years, which is quite rare.
Wow,
quite rare, long timer. And I think one of the exciting and interesting things about a global group like Morgan Advanced Materials was that every 3 or 4 years, when you get bored, when you get itchy feet and you want a new role, there's something new to do. There's a new division to move to.
So you moved around internally within Morgan?
Yes, yeah. I've worked in just about every division, every part of the world, either visiting extensively on business or living there. It was a crazy 30 years. It's just gone.
Because you've lived in China, you've done work in Asia, you currently live in Spain. Yeah. So you've really moved around.
Yeah, in my business, I think an industrial career, multinational career. In the pre-pandemic days, of course, I probably spent 25 years sitting in airports and sitting on long-haul flights, just endlessly circumnavigating the globe, which all sounds glamorous, and there are pluses and minuses of that, but it really gives you a global mindset, a global context,
yes,
in a way that sitting in an office or in one company will never give you. And to go out,
I did a Europe, Middle East and Asia role for a company for 6 years, and it was fantastic. Yes, you get bored of sitting in airports, but kind of way you manage your life, don't you? Because you kind of know that you've got 2 hours to sit in an airport, therefore you manage it. But the thing is that meeting people from different countries and different cultures enables you to get a far wider grasp of commerce and how it takes place across the world. And you find out that actually it takes place very similarly. But because when you go to a country as a tourist, you learn about the tourist things.
Yeah.
Like if you go to Paris, you learn about the Eiffel Tower. If you go to France on business, you understand how French people do business.
Yeah, and I think, as you say, there are many similarities, but there are radical differences in approach, in people's priorities. Deep down, you get to understand that people are people the world over. It doesn't matter about creed, race, etc., etc. The hierarchy of needs is the same.
Yes.
But beyond that, the different ways that different nationalities and cultures have learned to approach and solve problems is mind-blowing, really. It's really eye-opening. You think you come through your schooling, degree, etc., maybe MBA if you're in the business management side, and you get a kind of fixed view of this is how you do things, this is how you do business, and it's really eye-opening. And it was the most period of my career where I learned the most was living in China.
I can well imagine, yes.
Not just visiting, not just popping in and out, but physically being there, walking down the street to buy your groceries. It's very different to sitting in a five-star hotel, being wined and dined, and then getting on a plane and heading home.
But you've worked in areas such as automotive, renewable energy, electric cars, electronics, iron and steel, aluminium or aluminum if you're from the US, aerospace, medical devices. It's an extensive track record of working in different areas.
And that's because the nature of the subject, advanced materials, it is a foundational technology. It really touches everywhere. I always describe it as chemistry and physics set the ground rules of the world, but advanced materials are how we bring that into reality. And so you might be focused in your business on automotive or on shipping or on running a semiconductor plant, but actually, how are those technologies created from the ground up?
And so what is advanced materials?
Well, broadly, it's by my definition, and I don't think there is a formal one, but in terms of TTIP Global, our business, we talk about metals and alloys, polymers and plastics, composites, advanced ceramics, carbon materials, these kind of things. And I think probably the most common or most well-known modern cutting-edge advanced material is graphene. And graphene is a carbon nanomaterial. So you see a lot in the press about graphene, and that's one small component of what I and we work in terms of advanced materials. And one thing I've discovered over time is, business community likes to bundle things together and create these buzzwords. And what I've discovered is it's more recently what I've been working on for 30 years gets bundled into kind of terminology you hear is investment called things like hard tech or deep tech. I mentioned foundational materials earlier, or sometimes you hear frontier materials for the graphene end of things. But essentially, I hope you get a feel that my background and where we as a business focus is physical things. It's things you have to manufacture.
Yes.
Often when people talk about tech, they're talking about software.
Yes. I can understand that, and I think that what we do is that we tend to create our own. People tend to create their own language, but advanced materials has a things that you can touch is being. There's an advancement on that just as much as in the software and the high tech environment. Why do you think that advanced materials is so important?
I think advanced materials, as I said earlier, they really are the fundamental bedrock, the foundation for just about all of our businesses. And we'll come on later, not just the physical ones, the IT ones as well. I always use the example. 170 years ago, steel was an advanced material. Might seem commonplace now, but of course it changed our world. It built our cities, our infrastructure, our industry. And even now, over the last few decades, the way we live and work is being slowly transformed by another group of advanced materials, semiconductors. Semiconducting materials have been changing our lives for 50, 60 years behind the scenes. See things like silicon, gallium arsenide, and other increasingly exotic materials. Of course, they're the basis of all the computer chips, and the only reason that modern electronics can exist. They have absolutely revolutionized our world, changed the way we work, the way we learn, the way we communicate, and you and I would not be having this conversation if it wasn't for advanced materials.
Yep.
And I mentioned that in terms of tech, people often think of software, and I think there's mainly been a software focus over the last couple of decades, because kind of digital-based business models have become a real growth sector in recent times. We all know about the huge rise of Google and Amazon in the West, and over in China, Tencent, Alibaba, etc. So IT, or tech as it's abbreviated, has become very dominant, and investors, of course, have made a lot of money out of it. And I think that's translated into the business community into a perception that IT and digitalization are the most important things. And also in some way that tech in the IT sense stands apart and alone from the rest of industry. And that I think some of the terminology that's used is not helpful. Things like we talk about the cloud. It gives this perception that data just hangs around there in some mysterious electronic ether. But of course, what is the cloud? It's thousands of data servers sitting in data management centers around the world. It's physical equipment designed by engineers, built by manufacturers, and that all uses advanced materials.
Yeah, and I think that if you look at Tesla recently became a $1 trillion business. Apple is the same. They're all actually built on what you said, that they're all built on advanced materials, because they're built on silicon, and they're built on pushing those materials and that to its boundaries, really. So what do you believe advanced materials are doing for us now?
Well, what I see is, just looking back on my own career, I worked on the development of commercialization of new tech, new products, new systems, devices. And I think at the time, you're working in a business, so you are developing things to create value for customers. You're there to generate revenue and profit, to grow and sustain the business. It is a business after all. But I think on reflection, now I'm a little mature, and looking back, I realized that there was something else going on, something that a wave of innovation that I've seen grow in many companies, many markets now. So, I did things like I was involved in developing safer versions of materials to replace known carcinogens, or new technologies to prevent fire risk in lithium-ion batteries, electric vehicles, improved insulation materials for industrial processes, fire protection for safeguard passengers, these kind of things. So at the time, you feel like you're just creating products and creating value.
Yep.
But looking back, I think I realized that all the things that we were doing with all those great colleagues I work with around the world, essentially you're there making the world a better place, bit by bit, small bit. Reducing energy consumption, you're reducing pollution, creating safer working environments. So, I said I worked in Morgan Advanced Materials, and now over the last 3 or 4 years, now in TTIP Global, I get to work with lots of other industrial companies, Johnson Matthey, DuPont, 3M, all these kind of well-known names. So I see the same trends happening in there, and so I see emerging from these companies and a lot of smaller startups, an ever-growing list of new advanced materials which are emerging to improve things like battery performance in electric vehicles, new grades of materials for offshore wind farms to survive saltwater corrosion, even new grades of glass for buildings that can improve efficiency and spread the use of solar power generation. And so all of this has kind of been built up into another wave and a new buzzword I've just been learning this year about, which they call clean tech, or clean technology, a group of technologies that's achieving environmental sustainability and decarbonizing our future, essentially. So I really see that what I was involved in, and all my peers and colleagues and other businesses, startups, research groups around the world, it was all kind of initiating a whole new wave of innovation, a new world of advanced materials. And advanced materials appear to have emerged as the key to solving the world's environmental problems today.
To use the sports analogy of marginal gains, you seem to have, there's that the way that you win a race is to be that slightly bit better than everybody else. And by what it sounds like is you've worked on lots of things. And while a lithium battery may not sound that exciting, actually it is, because it's been able to enable certain innovation to take place. So how are you seeing this new wave of innovation progressing?
I think one of the challenges, particularly now at TTIP Global, we're working with not only multinationals but startups. I see one of the practical realities is, of course, for any business is investment. Any business needs investment to succeed, whether it's government seed funding or private investment from venture capitalists. So I think as we just talked about, the previous couple of decades where the big wave of innovation was a software, digital one, therefore a lot of private investment was focused in those areas. And why did they do that? Because it was the one offering the fast return. And I think we understand now that building a digital product and business can be relatively rapid. So I think one of the challenges and opportunities, I guess, for investors, given today's global challenges around the world, is a growing realization that software or an app is not going to save the world. For that, you need physical solutions. For that, you need advanced materials. And that's why I see this swing in investment focus from these IT towards hard tech, or specifically what they call clean tech. And it's also, I see, quite an uncomfortable challenge for investors, because they need to develop some patience, essentially. Hard tech can take many years to develop and commercialize. I think when you're creating an app or software product or service of some kind, you can lock a team of software engineers in an office for 6 months, and they can come up with a product, because a product is created by coding. You are typing into a keyboard. With physical materials, of course, it takes much longer, because if you're creating just the materials, the systems, devices, it takes time to test, assemble, scale up manufacturing, transport the materials around, trial samples, prototype, and real applications. And so return on investment of such things can be quite a long time. And it's not unusual to take a new idea to reality. It could be 10 years in the world of advanced materials. Sometimes it can be much longer. And so in terms of investment, that means tens of millions, sometimes hundreds of millions of dollars to make it a success. So investors are having to learn patience and commitment. Another thing I see is that although there is lots of exciting progress in the world of advanced materials, particularly this clean tech related to dealing with challenges of air pollution, climate change, etc., it is unfortunately in many cases quite slow. And you talked to him about this kind of little progress steps. And I think what we need is not just more and more new technologies. We also need a way to speed up the commercialization, to bring them in.
Yes.
Because it's one thing having all the great new ideas and tech, but until they're real and actually deployed, they don't make an impact. They don't deal with the problems, and that's essentially why we set up TTIP Global.
Right, and so to explain to us how TTIP Global is addressing the challenge.
Well, when I look at quite topical, I think yesterday was in the UK was the budget, and they, amongst other things, they announced.
We're talking on the 28th of October 2021. So
thanks for the timestamp. So, and this is an increasing trend. I see more European, UK governments announcing more and more increase in R&D funding, which is great. You know, it starts the thing off. It's the catalyst for innovation, creating all those new ideas and technology that's going to be needed. But unfortunately, the practical reality is that these things largely ignore the practical business challenges of making all these great new technologies a reality. I think there's an expectation and perhaps a naivety that as soon as technology is created, it's just handed over to industry and they'll do the rest. But after 30 years in business, believe me, I know that businesses have their own problems and their own daily challenges to deal with. You know, businesses are busy controlling costs, maintaining product quality, dealing with regulatory issues, legal, commercial, just the daily grind of just staying in business is damn hard work. And that's before they get around to thinking about growth and the future of their business and creating new products and services. And so I've experienced many times in my own career and now in TTIP Global, just how companies struggle with commercializing technology. So my concern is that all this increased investment up front to create new tech is simply going to stuff the front end of the innovation funnel. And what we're ending up is creating this huge bottleneck down the line, because what I see is missing is the resources and skills implementation. You know, having all the great ideas is just the start. And that's why we started our business, TTIP Global. We work with a lot of companies around the world, and the number one complaint I hear from business leaders and those leading growth and innovation is, the number one thing they say is, we're good at inventing new things, but we're not good at commercializing them. And I think that's quite an admission for a business to make. Not an isolated statement. You know, businesses recognize they have lots of good ideas, but they also recognize they often lack the capability to implement them effectively. And what do I mean by that? What are the barriers? They come in many forms. Lack of the right business processes, lack of mindset, office politics, hampering collaboration, lack of resources, lack of market knowledge. You know, implementation barriers come in multiple forms in businesses. And that's where TTIP Global comes in. We founded our business 3 years ago to help companies to bridge the gap between new ideas and successful implementation and commercialization. So we're a global organization. We help innovative science, technology, and engineering companies to scale and grow.
And I love the fact that you named your company after your first book.
Thank you, Tim. Yes, you noticed.
it's a great idea.
Explain that to people. Yeah, you know, that's an interesting one, Tim, because people frequently ask me, where did it all come from? Where did the idea? How did we start the platform? And essentially, you said I live in Spain, so the reality of my life at the time was I'd finished my corporate role. I stepped out of corporate life. I'd stepped off the corporate mouse wheel. And my first summer here in Spain, sitting around the pool, sipping cocktails, which was great, but eventually had to re-engage with the world and put your brain turn your brain back on. And one of the things I decided to do, I thought, so what do I enjoy doing? What did I enjoy doing about corporate life? What do I not enjoy doing? And so I thought, I'll do the things I enjoy doing. And some of the things I decided was I like standing on the stage talking at people.
Yeah.
So I became a professor at a university in Madrid.
Fantastic.
Unfortunately, the stage was pulled from under me thanks to the last 18 months, but it's coming back slowly. And one of the things I wanted to do was take stock and say, what have I learned in the last 30 years? And so that's where the first book came. That's where TTIP, Transforming Technology into Profit, came. I thought, what have I learned about creating, where new ideas come from, how to choose the the right ones to focus your business on, the business processes, and how to work with people and organizations, and how to drive that all the way through to commercialization. So I kind of did a download of my brain and created what became the first book. And I thought that was probably it, but no, I haven't stopped writing since then. I've done 4 books.
Oh, fantastic.
So it also became the foundation for our management consulting business. So TTIP became TTIP Global. We created a whole set of initially training programs specifically built around what was in the first book, then what was in the second, and now the third book. And also building the executive team. So I have another director in France, one in the US. They all bring in different skills. So Chris Spiro in the US, again, like me, has a similar long background. Also a prolific author. And so he really complements.
Yeah, that's good.
You. And then the other important side of it, and critical in dealing with implementation, is my other partner is called Jim Hick. So he has nothing to do with the world of advanced materials. His expertise is leadership and people development.
Right. Okay.
And so he's the kind of yin to my yang.
It's the yin yang. Yes. Yeah.
So the 3 of us together built this business, and we created the foundation for all these different programs. And then we added a whole bunch of broader management consulting projects on top of that, and slowly built the business through associates. So we have a number of people around the world now. We have boots on the ground in, I think, 13 of the top 15 global economies of the world.
Wow.
So all around France, Germany, North America. We're very strong in Asia. So we have people in China, India, Singapore, South Korea, Japan. And one of the things we increasingly asked to do is to open up Asian markets for Western companies.
Right. So how do you help customers?
Well, essentially, there's 3 ways. So, and this has grown over time. I think, like any business, you start on one platform, and you kind of, as the journey continues, you go in different directions. You add things, you take things away. Particularly management consulting, you need to balance. You don't want to get too complex and too opaque. So we focus now on 3 things. So first of all, we help companies, we help them to deliver commercial growth. So that we do things like opening up new markets, finding new applications for their technology. Second thing we do is we help them strengthen their organization. And this is things like setting up business innovation processes, help them set up manufacturing overseas. We do strategy reviews, due diligence on acquisitions. And the third and key area is we help develop their people.
Right.
This is where we have our leadership and team training. Yep. We help instill collaborative mindset, the right behaviors to work together to focus on growth. We started working with multinationals 3 years ago because that's what we know. Connections.
Of course.
And then we moved to kind of large, medium-sized organizations, and then started to work with startups. And we started to kind of link startups and multinationals together. We form kind of conduit and bridgehead for that. And one of the things we started last year, early on when the pandemic hit, is as we had to go digital as well, we had to innovate our business. So one of the things we did was we started a training and networking forum for people in industry. So
okay.
It's called Innovate for Success.
Yep.
If anyone looks up on my LinkedIn page or our website, ttipglobal.com,
yep,
We're training and networking forum. So please come and check it out. People can register for the first session for free. It's a facilitated self-learning environment, and we have usually mid to senior career people in many of these types of organizations around the world. And in fact, in terms of a timestamp, if people are listening to this live, the next event is actually in 2 hours' time. And we have just an example of the topics we cover. Today's session is sustainability as a new driver for innovation. And we have a guest speaker who is a guy called Bill Jackson. He's the Chief Technology Officer for Amcor. And Amcor is the world's largest packaging company. So we're looking forward to that, to learn how, I think in the past, sustainability and these kind of subjects were seen as a kind of challenge that might drag down businesses, but Amcor have actually learned to turn it into a real winning strategy for their customers.
So just to summarize that, so if people want to get hold of you, you're Andy Wynn at ttipglobal.com, and Wynn is WYNN, and your website is ttipglobal.com as the website as well.
Yes, correct. Yes,
and you're really active on LinkedIn as well, in terms of, because I've contacted you on LinkedIn.
Yes, it's a wonderful, useful platform, isn't it?
It is, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Yes, yeah. It's become our number one focus for our business. People come to us. We've grown over 3 years to the extent that I think in terms of numbers now, associates around the world. I said we have boots on the ground in place. We've got around 50 people now.
Wow, that's good.
So we got a full range of professional skills. So we've got technologists like myself. We've got business management experts. We've got marketing experts. We've got operational experts, and we've got them in India, South Korea, USA, Brazil, Spain, France. So we've really built this matrix of people who, and it's usually people who have had long careers at director or C-level, vice president or president level in some well-known organization. So largely people like myself who've come to the end of had enough of corporate life.
Yeah. But the key thing is that these people have got experience, and that has applying that experience is for many organisations is what they need. Experience provides quick answers.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the other thing they bring as a network is contacts.
Yeah,
amazing how many people in how many businesses, how many customers, suppliers, how many contacts you have when you've been doing it for 30, 35, some of them 40 years. And then when you got and you times that by 50, it's amazing. The
network, yeah.
The dots you can join is amazing.
Andy, thank you so much for coming on and talking about advanced materials. It's such a fascinating subject. And I'm sitting here with my new iMac, which is the new M1 chip, and you think about the innovation and the way that materials have been used in this. It's just fascinating. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing that.
My pleasure. I think you mentioned that example. You mentioned Apple and Tesla as well. It's important to remember that the iPhone and these things, they wasn't a new technology. It was an amalgamation of lots of existing technologies, and it's creating a new device with new functionality. And it wasn't. These things are not developed and created overnight, are they?
No, not at all.
Or additive. But it's been a real pleasure. Thanks, Tim.
Thanks, Andy, and I really appreciate you coming on and sharing your insights. It's a fascinating subject, and I hope people got something from it.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thanks, Andy. Bye.